The Finance Subcommittee of the City Council is comprised of 5 council members and considers any or all questions appropriate for the purpose of considering the budget, including the creation of new positions to the payroll, changes to the employee classification plan, or any matters pertaining to increasing the City of Framingham employee headcount. The following City Council Finance Subcommittee meeting coverage is brought to you by the Government Channel, a service of the City of Framingham.
Finance Subcommittee of May 27th, 2026 at 5 p.m. will come to order. First order of business is public participation. If you're going to publicly participate on an item that's on our agenda, we ask that you wait for the agenda item. If you're here for something that's not on the agenda, we're more than happy to hear from you. Ms. Klitsch, are you going to, you signed in, but are you going to, aren't you guys on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm speaking for myself, actually, not for the library.
Right, but you're gonna do that when we're on the library discussion, is that okay? Okay. And then I know there's folks from the Callahan Center. Mr. Kidd, do you guys want to speak, if you want to?
Well, I guess it's part of the library.
Well, not yet it isn't, is it?
Whenever you want us.
I would, you know what? Specifically, it's not yet, so why don't, you can speak.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, you folks can speak.
Thank you, folks. Before I start, I just want to introduce 2 people. Mary McGill, president of the Friends of the Callahan, and Bruce Warren, one of the vets. In any case, my name is Steve Kiviat, and I'm a member of the Friends of the Callahan Senior Center. The Friends of the Callahan, with its president, Mary McGill, is a nonprofit part of the Callahan that helps raise money for the center's programs. I am more than pleased to be part of this outstanding board. I found out last evening that there are plans underway that would combine the Callahan Center with the vet services and the library. I feel that this is a fantastic idea, and I want to applaud Mayor Szycki for having the courage to make this difficult decision. All 3 of these departments have one goal in mind: to work with the citizenry of Framingham to learn and to grow with our community. The Callahan Center is a very special place where our seniors can visit and take part in many wonderful programs and activities that specialize in their needs. The vets have a place in the library where they can meet and discuss their own concerns. It's our fervent wish that as members of the Callahan Center, the vets will have the opportunity to become a vital part of the senior center community. And of course, the offerings that our library makes available to all of these people in Framingham are exemplary. Having these 3 departments under one roof will allow the expansion of many programs in place now, while affording the new group the ability to work together to forge a department that is the envy of the entire state and maybe beyond our borders. Change can be difficult at times. It creates uncertainty. However, the personnel in our existing departments more than is up to the task. While Dawn's responsibilities will increase, she will have the support of all of us. The Callahan Center will be fine staffed the way it currently is. Veteran Services will have both the Callahan Center and the library to work with for their needs. And the volunteers for all the divisions will remain valuable assets. There's so much room for growth on this new arrangement that our opportunities will be limited only by our imagination. I urge the councilors to approve this new structure so that we can take our citizens to the future that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else for public participation? Please raise your hand. If not, we'll move on to our agenda. Oh, wait, Zoom land, I apologize. Mr. Bloomfield, 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
All right, try and work with me here. I'm a little bit confused sometimes. That's part of getting older.
I know all about that.
Boston and Worcester commercial property values have dropped, and so shall Framingham's. We should be aware of that feature and understand it's going to impact revenue. Do we have any statistics for average family income Framingham, both as apartment dwellers and homeowners, financially? Can they afford to stay in Framingham? Everything is working against them. They will leave. Framingham has major building and infrastructure costs ahead, all of which must be accounted for. The CIP should reflect debt service expense capability relative to daily operating expenses and everything involved with that to make sure we're on a course that's going to be manageable to some degree. Will we, like the new Fuller building, have a school and city building fund established for to soften the debt service for places ahead like Bethany, like Keith, like Hemingway, and everything else? Are we going to have anything in place to help offset or soften some of the debt service? I remember we had like $10 or $20 million ahead of the Fuller building costs back in the day. What is the balance in our, I keep on asking this, what is the balance in our sustainability fund, and what do we have for a rainy day fund? We should be able to at least get that information out to the public so we know what we have, as opposed to keeping it in our back pockets. Do we have a structure in place to address the collective bargaining agreement, retirement increases, and considerations? We should have a strategy in place as to deal with those in those situations. Memorial Day week, you are here gathered. We remember the greatest generation and all they sacrificed. It looks like we're going to be sacrificing. Our community must sacrifice as well as our employees. I keep on saying this, and I want everybody to know, and I think they know I appreciate all of our employees. I believe that the GIC health insurance premium increases must be paid by the employees, going from a 75-25 shift to a 50-50 shift. And I've been told that there's some connection with contract agreements, and I don't believe that's collective bargaining agreements or some kind of law in the state, and I would like confirmation of that by way of our solicitor so we know what our capabilities are in that regard. And if we have to create the shift later than July 1st, so be it. We are allowing the folks in the condominiums to make a shift from us paying for their trash pickup to them covering it themselves. Even though they're taxpayers, those condo people that live there expect city services as well, so I'm not sure.
Mr. Bloomfield, if you could wrap it up, you're over 3 minutes, but we will recognize you on budget items when you raise your hand.
Yeah, I got it. I pray that we can endure the difficulties ahead, see our way through with our spirits intact. I do not believe we can cut deeper into the school and still maintain the level of necessary educational coverage that's required. Starting July 1st, we need to pull together a special group of individuals that are our employees from all the division heads, along with the CFO and the people in the accounting division, to begin to pull together a package of
Mr. Bloomfield,
reports that
you got to wrap it up, okay? Please wrap it up, and then I will call on you on the budget items.
I'm done. I just want to say
I can't be any nicer. I'm getting the looks.
We need to report
I can feel 'em.
monthly
It's over 3
to
minutes.
citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Donna Kilcoyne Orthofer. 3 minutes, please.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to be really short. I wanted to make a comment. Last night I was watching the joint meeting that you had, and one of the take-homes was that you were surprised that there weren't more people in attendance, or you're probably surprised that the room isn't packed tonight. But I know that I go a lot to meetings. I watch the meetings from home, and I make comments. And the one thing that I have to say is it gets a little bit discouraging because people make comments and people have had ideas about different things, and it feels like it falls on deaf ears or that there's no follow-up. So I think what you're seeing is people are just very discouraged with where we are. And, you know, people have tried to stay involved, but it's really hard to stay involved when you feel like your voice isn't heard. And also you all keep saying the same thing over and over again. So I want you to keep that in mind, because people do care about Framingham and they want to feel like public participation isn't just an item on the agenda. It's actually something that you all pay attention to. So thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, order 2025-045-002. Continued discussions on the new operating enterprise budgets for FY 2027, debt service, health insurance, and retirement. To your team, Mr.
All right,
Mayor.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So tonight, we're focusing on library budget and the DPW budget. And I just want to give you an update from information that I put out last night about the DPW budget. DPW administration has been working to get new proposals for extending the pickup, the disposal of our trash and recycling, because the contracts are over this year. And they just got back the proposals, and we met with some of the DPW staff this morning, and we got some very good news on the results of their efforts, to the extent that the prices for tipping fees for next year are going to be significantly lower than the current year. And because of that, we've been able to rework some of the services that I propose that we cut or eliminate that the DPW provides. And we're going to cut back our proposal to close the recycling center at all. And we're also going to put back in the budget the money that we took out for the leaf and brush pickup in the fall. We feel that the money we're saving on the new tipping fees will enable us to avoid having to cut those services that we talked about last night. So I think that's very good news in terms of everybody's concern about the impact on the public. So I just want to report that tonight, and that will show up, that change will show up in the paperwork that the CFO provides you tomorrow.
Councilor Mallett, question?
To follow up on that, are you still proposing in the budget that you would ask condos to pay for their own?
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Anybody else? Councilor Stefanini.
Do you want us to start this conversation about Public Works now?
Yeah, they're here.
Okay.
And they'll answer any questions you have about their budget. They'll try to, and I also want to point out that Bob Lewis is available on Zoom. He had to go home for a medical reason this morning, so he's not available here in person, but he's on Zoom if anybody has any questions directly for him.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Councilor Stefanini.
I'd like to hear from Public Works about their budget, because we don't have, this is kind of unusual because we don't have any numbers. So it'd be helpful to know either from the CFO or from Public Works, what other changes, adjustments we're looking at, where they're looking at risk, where there isn't risk. Like, for example, snow and ice, are we keeping that where it has been? What other areas do you think? So we have some visibility as to halfway through the year, we have a problem. I'd like to know that, gee, we talked about that at this point in the conversation.
So I'll ask Brian to address that.
Sure.
And then the people from DPW are here to answer questions, basically, because they're not prepared to make a presentation.
We did a presentation with them
Yeah.
a month ago.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So the majority of the impact in the cuts relative to DPW will be I believe it's $324,000 for the removal of the pickup of trash and recycling at the condominium development, and then the vacancy, frictional rate of vacancy that we have analyzed and are taking from their budget. with the amount of the change in the disposal pricing within the DPW budget itself, we have not anticipated at this point, after finalizing everything today, that there will be substantially additional cuts to all their operating budgets, and we have not proposed any changes to snow and ice.
Are there any risks or any changes to any other services?
No. The only risk is the frictional rate of vacancy that we have, or the elimination of the trash and recycling at the condos. We have not made any other operational changes at this point.
So talk to us a little bit, because we haven't talked about it yet, this frictional rate of vacancy. We talked initially about the $8 million that was in turnback, and you were trying to capitalize, not just in Public Works, but across budgets. How are you capturing that, and what is your relative risk, and how are you planning on dealing with the risk if it occurs?
Sure. So, as stated, I think in the May 20th, 2026 presentation of the subcommittee, Anthony had done work, and him and I discussed the analysis of the 3 previous fiscal years for what I would say are the 3 largest departments, being police, fire, and DPW, across all operations in DPW. The last 3 years, the turnbacks have averaged about $1.1 million. And so what we did, and that was vacancies that existed throughout the year, and right near the end of the year, right? So there's unspent money in the salary line itself. So what we did was we took that $1.1 million on an average over the last 3 fiscal years, and we have decreased on the salary line itself, the police, fire, and DPW budget by $350,000 roughly for each budget. We took $550,000 of that as direct savings from each of the departments to the bottom line, and we took the additional $550,000 to get to the $1.1 million that we reduced out of their budgets, and we put it into the salary reserve account, because what we're doing when we have this frictional rate of vacancies is we're really managing the vacancies and the timing and how, as a way to manage the expenses in the budget. So we proposed putting $550,000 of that into the salary reserve line as a way, if one of those departments is not experiencing vacancies on the same path or trajectory that they have in the last 3 fiscal years or so, then we would have some of that money to restore into their budget, because without it, they would end up in a deficit. So it's the first step to, on a more wholesale, through every department, do this analysis and begin to manage all of those frictional vacancies. But we started with the 3 largest department, probably because it was a little easier with them to really identify all of those changes versus smaller changes throughout the rest of the organization. It is something that we're going to continue to work on as we move towards fiscal 28 to implement, provided it works the way we expect it will, with the other departments into fiscal 28.
So
That's how we managed it. But there is risk, because if vacancies don't occur or they don't last as long as we thought they would, then we will be coming through the city council back to the subcommittee to transfer some of that savings that we have allocated into a different line back to restore those operating budgets. But it's a risk that I think, as a CFO, I'm comfortable taking, given the prior numbers that we've seen.
So first, I appreciate your creativity and taking on a little bit of risk as a way to save some money. And I guess my question would be either to you or Mr. King. 2 questions. The first is, are there any legal issues with us hiring more FTEs than we have money in the budget to pay for? Does that create any issues for us in terms of that? And the second question, I'll just put them both on the table, is I get police and fire because they have one line item. Public Works has lots of line items, so it must be a lot more complicated because the risk is smaller in smaller buckets.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll answer the last part of that question, Councilor Stefanini. I think managing DPW and that risk is probably going to be where the majority of the time in the analysis of those vacancies is going to occur, because you're right, with police and fire, it's one lump number in that operating, so it'll be a little easier to analyze than extrapolating through the various departments in DPW. But I am confident that, having already done this in a previous place, I'm confident that we can have a system that will address that. I think that the issue with the budgets, I'll defer to Counselor King on all of the mechanics of this in terms of the budget, but from my perspective, with vacancies, I don't believe we'll be, and with salary analysis, I think we'll be able to keep a watchful eye on that and to manage it in a way that we will be on top of it and know that projection well in advance of any issues occurring.
Okay.
Councilor King?
I would concur, as long as the positions are in the budget, the total number doesn't mean anything until it does.
Doesn't matter until it matters, right?
But assuming it never does, then that's the risk that was addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Malik?
Just a clarifying question. I'm looking at the presentation from May 20th, I think it was, and it shows a reduction of 1.1 in city departments' personnel reductions. Is that what we're talking about here? It only came off those 3 departments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe there is a line maybe right above the projected additional school cut that says vacancy rate or vacancy management, and it should be 550,000. That's what I'm referring to when I say the frictional rate of vacancy. The 1.1 is true, legitimate personnel actions and adjustments to budgets. It is not that vacancy rate management. They're 2 independent items.
Okay. So when you were talking about the 3 largest department, police, fire, and DPW, each having a $350,000 reduction, where do I see that, or I don't see that?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. You will not see it in that presentation, but in the blue-green sheet, now that all the other changes have been made to balance the budget, you will see it in all of that documentation. It is a bottom line adjustment. It is not an individual employee adjustment. It's a bottom line adjustment to manage the vacancies on a global basis within those departments.
Gotcha. So we can, sorry, just one more. So we can, and these personnel reductions will be on top of,
That is correct.
thank you.
That blue-green sheet that's so easy to understand. Councilor Stefanini?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, 2 other things. First is condos. I do think at some point we need to revisit the policy relative to condos and which ones we cover and which ones we don't cover and how we deal with that. You may recall there was a house on Mellon Street that a bunch of years ago, Dennis Giambetti spent a lot of time, and you were probably a selectman, renovating and getting funds for. I was kind of surprised. I drove by there today and I noticed there were 4 brown dumpsters, which means they get private piece. It's just, we need to figure out how we do all of that consistently, and I know that we inherited a hodgepodge of everything that's there, but I think we need to try to figure out, moving forward, how we're a little bit fairer in terms of how we deal with that, which I think is important. And the last question I had was a general question to you, Mr. CFO. When will we get sort of an analysis of what do these budgets look like in the next couple of years? Or some sense of what the personnel costs in particular are going to look like in the next few years?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we're currently having finalized the fiscal 27 information to be able to turn over to you in advance of your meeting tomorrow. The next step is to finalize the review of those and input and get information from the schools so that we can start to build what I keep referring to as the 4 pillars of the budget. So I probably need about 10 days to finish that and compile what it might look like for the next couple of years, just because I've been so focused on the budget and trying to get this done and to the subcommittee, the council, and then the subcommittee. So the next focus after we turn that over is to finalize those reviews and build that out, and then we should be prepared to do that probably within the next 10 days, I would say.
I would just remind you, our timeline is tight in terms of approval, and I think we need to have some visibility as to what years 2, 3, 4 are going to look like, so we're not on this cliff again where we are.
It will require some work with the school and to make sure that they can give us their numbers to understand what they're looking at as well. But we will, I will do my very best, but I would expect it would be before this process and before the second vote for this, so you have an understanding. And I'll do my very best to get it earlier than that.
I appreciate your effort and your candor. Thank you.
Anybody else up here? Go out to the audience. Anybody in the audience have anything they want to share or add? Nobody on Zoom? Nobody on Zoom with their hand up? All right, Mr. Mayor, do we want to talk about the library next? Okay, after DPW?
Mr. Chairman, can we dismiss the people from DPW?
Yes. I would think so, right? We just went, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for being here tonight, folks.
Thanks,
Much
everyone.
appreciated.
Thank you.
And you want to give an introduction to the library budget?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yep.
And then
Sure.
Dawn is here.
Dawn is, yep.
Other
Why
people are
doesn't-
here
Why don't you sit
to
up front, Dawn?
talk.
And anybody want to sit with you? Team.
So as part of the original, I believe it was the May 20th presentation of the subcommittee, one of the initial additional cuts as we worked through the deficit was, we had talked to some of the departments, and the library had stepped up and proposed approximately $83,000 in reductions that they felt they could make. And I don't, certainly not going to sit here and say that it's not going to impact services, and that's certainly why the library director is here to discuss that in the plan. I did submit today the actual documentation from the library director on those cuts and notations about those cuts. And she's here and happy to answer any of the questions that the council may have, but she did provide that and said that this is the way that she could help with the deficit in a way that she felt was still manageable and would still allow for the operation and continued services to the residents of the city. So I'll direct any questions to the library director at this point, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Welcome. You want to give a quick little intro?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come here this evening as well. I know this has been difficult for everybody. And this is our business manager at the library, Nick. You don't often see him, but he does make sure the math is right in everything we do.
You need one of those guys or gals.
And so when we were given the assignment of identifying ways to lower our operating costs, we took that very seriously. Nick and I sat down and went through our budget line by line. We consulted with my mentor, we consulted with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, and we consulted with our Board of Trustees, and we made sure that we approached this really carefully and strategically. And the reality for us is that the library operates with very slim margins. Most of our budget, as you know, is personnel. It's around 80%. And when we were asked to find operating reductions, there weren't too many places that we could look before we were talking about people's hours and public service hours or both. Now, my obligation as the library director is twofold. That's to protect the service for the community and also to protect the people who provide that service. So our proposal to reduce non-contractual hours was not arrived at easily. It was chosen because it allows us to actually lower costs while avoiding layoffs and preserving the broadest possible level of service. I know one question is, why not choose what's perceived to be a less busy time? And the answer is that most of our this answer is twofold as well. Most of our weekday and evening hours are covered by staff whose hours are part of regular contractual schedules. So if I close the branch on a Tuesday night, I still have to pay those people to work on another day because those hours are provided by staff members that need to be scheduled elsewhere. So it wasn't, I promise you, this wasn't simply a question of which hours are more or least convenient, and it was a question of which hours produce actual savings without reducing permanent staff hours or triggering deeper personal consequences. And I also want to clarify that we are not reducing unique library services in the way it might first appear. So the library system will remain open. The main library will remain available during the hours when the branch would be closed. In the summer months especially, the library also functions, as we've talked about before, as a cooling station. Many of our most vulnerable patrons are closer to the main library, which was one of the reasons why I didn't recommend alternating closure. That and confusion that it would create for the public and the staff. So we were given a difficult task. There's no solution that will make everyone happy, but we do believe we did our job, and we found the least harmful option available to us under the circumstances. I also think it's important for the council and for the community to know that when I met with the mayor and the CFO and the COO to review these plans, the first question that the mayor asked me was, are we protecting library services and are we protecting our employees? And the answer was yes. And that was the guiding principle that we used to make these decisions. So the proposal isn't about diminishing the branch. It's not about a lack of commitment to library service. And in fact, I've mentioned this to several people, the strong reaction from counselors and from residents shows exactly how much this community values its libraries. Councilor Cannon, I know that you raised some serious concerns about the idea of reducing branch hours, and I want to say sincerely, while these concerns are difficult to hear, I did find them heartening. It showed how deeply that you value the place and the people that it serves. So there's also precedent for this decision. Sorry, I'm trying to, I don't want to take up too much time, but
Listen,
a few
we're happy
directors.
you're here. We appreciate you being here, so
Oh,
you take as
thank
much
you.
time as you need, Dawn.
A few directors ago, a situation like this occurred, and I'm sure Councilor King, you probably remember this. This was during the time of Tom Gilchrist, I believe. The branch had to close hours for a certain period of time, but then it came back, and that's what we are counting on. We are making a proposal that really does make a significant fiscal impact, and we are hoping that when we are stabilized as a community, these hours will come back. I did prepare for you. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share it. Our staff went through, we thought about all of the data points we could possibly think of to show to you how carefully we arrived at this decision. We looked at how many room bookings happen throughout the week. We looked at how many items are checked out throughout the week. And we looked at, this is an interesting one, our Wi-Fi usage. Our Wi-Fi usage gives us a really clear picture of how many people are in our buildings at any time. And if I could give this to you, is that okay? You can see Saturday isn't a busy day at all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Mary, would you please? I feel like a teacher. So I'll give you a second to look at it, and hopefully, I'm not a teacher, actually, so hopefully it makes sense. Oh, sure.
Excellent.
Can I ask a follow-up question on this whenever it makes
Absolutely.
sense?
Whenever you're ready, Councilor.
Just so I'm understanding, and it's great to see you here, and I have, in working with you over the, time flies. And we'll have opportunity to talk about all the wonderful things that you've done in your time for our community. But I understand you're, first and foremost, you're a Marine, so whatever the most challenging obstacle that is thrown at you, you will overcome successfully on behalf of the community. So I feel very, very good about that, and seeing what you've done in your collaborative work with our seniors already and with our Veterans Council. People forget that, we were struggling to attract veterans onto our Veterans Council and get people engaged, and you've meaningfully helped people create a new culture of that, and you're terrible at accepting credit and compliments, so I'll stop talking because I know you don't like the spotlight, but I'm grateful for the work that you've done. I will direct my concern about closing or limiting the library hours to the mayor, because I think that's more of a public policy decision than it is something for the library director. But just so I'm understanding, so 82.4% Wi-Fi clients on weekdays, 17.6 on weekends. So is that 5 days combined into the 84 and then 2 for the 17.6?
That is an average over the course of the week. So that's those 5 days averaged out. It's not in a cumulative number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if I was
Yeah.
doing the math, and I think it's 510, is that the Dewey Decimal System number for applied mathematics? And it may be 508. It's in the
You will not
500s
find me there.
somewhere. Because otherwise, it looks like it's pretty, it actually looks like the weekends are higher if that's divided by 2
No.
and divided by 5. Okay.
No, and I'm happy to send our technology librarian did come up with an entire year's worth of data. Librarians love data, and we have pages and pages and pages of, in fact, Jill, the assistant director, put it all together with about 1 million graphs that I'm happy to send at any point. And it was difficult to figure out because you can't just go on materials checked out, because somebody can come with a stack of 15 books and doesn't give you an accurate picture of how many people come in. But what we did notice when looking at these trends is that, and we also have computer usage, our actual computer usage, all of these numbers were high, except for circulation, which you'll see on here. Saturdays is comparative, and I actually probably should give you the rest of the charts so you can take a better look. But aside from circulation, all of those numbers were surprisingly lower on Saturdays. Sundays are tricky because it's only a 4-hour day, so the numbers are going to be skewed. You have to, kind of work with that. But something else is because our librarians are collective bargaining, none of them are required to work on Saturdays in the summertime, and none of them are required to work on Sundays in the summertime. That's a time that is staffed by substitutes. And that's where you see we came up with the savings. So there's less programming on the weekends sometimes. We do have our Bob Dodd Sunday Concert Series, which is one of our most well-attended programs on Sundays. We would never, ever want to cut that. And like I mentioned, these weren't easy to arrive at. The last thing that we want to do as librarians is restrict. We are all about access. But we're also team players. We know that we have to do our part, and this is what we present to you, to do our part temporarily, not forever. Again, as I mentioned, I think it's my faith in this city council and in this administration, who have shown in so many ways that you value us. Every time I sit here, you tell us that we're wonderful, and we appreciate that, and we know that we're going to get through this together. You mentioned that I'm a Marine. There's even though the letter I is in Marines, there is no I in Marines. There's no ego. This is all about all of us doing our part, and that's what we are proposing. This is what we can offer to get us out of this crisis.
Thank you. Just one follow-up to someone in the mayor or the COO. The CBA, this keeps seeming to come up where we have to make these decisions or we can't make these decisions because of collective bargaining. I think it's becoming more and more important that we look at that, so we're planning for the obligations that we have. We didn't seem to plan for some flexibility that it seems we would need, and now we're making decisions because of our obligations that are in our collective bargaining. So the sooner we can have that conversation and understand if we're forecasting correctly, because it's come up in a few different areas now, and the school department loves to lean on that as a reason for anything, but the collective bargaining is, those are two parties that come together to do that. So, all right, I appreciate it. And it's 511. That is mathematics in the old Dewey Decimal System.
You still won't find me there.
I had to look it up. You guys don't even use that anymore, right?
We do.
You do?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We do. Not all libraries do, but yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'll 70.
Thank you for your creativity and your thoughts. What is the cost? First of all, how many days are we talking about closing?
We're talking about closing for 7.5 hours on Saturdays during the summer, which is 8 weeks.
Okay.
So 8 Saturdays. We're talking about closing for 4 hours in the fall and, until we stabilize on Sundays. But again, services will remain open. We still have a bookmobile that goes throughout the community. We have a book locker at Callahan where people can order materials to pick up there, drop off their materials there, and we, of course, have the main library.
So what is the cost of that reduction to you? If it not where you are today, but if you were to put that back in, what is the most efficient cost for you to restore those services?
For the librarians to work on the Saturdays, we were conservative at 27,000, but it could be 32,000.
So 27 to 32,000.
Because of the electricity.
Yeah, and then we also did our best to estimate electricity costs. The library HVAC and electricity is never completely off, but it does go to either a cooler in the wintertime temperature or warmer in the summertime. And, at the branch, the lights turn off on their own because it's fancy building. And the lights are always off at the main library when we leave. So we did our best to look at 52 weeks and add those estimates in. I think, you have the spreadsheet with the council. I think you have the spreadsheet with the line items. Mhm.
I would just suggest that somewhere in this budget, we can find $32,000. And it's not just about the percentages and everything else. A lot of it, at least from a lot of the folks that I know and I've heard from, are families. People who work during the week who want to go with a child to drop off a book or something else. And I think we just have to be sensitive to that. And it's not, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when we talk about, police, fire, DPW, $32,000 isn't a hiccup. We should be able to, Mr. King should be able to find that in a blink. No pressure. And do we want to have conversation about, when we're done on veterans in Callahan?
Again.
Okay.
Any other questions for the library? Council Cannon.
I expected a higher number than the 32, so thank you for asking that question, Councilor Stefanini. Just to clarify, we've taken out, or you've taken out the Mass Municipal Association, the membership, the lobbying organization, the trade show. That's out of the budget now, right? So that's in the budget. The trade show, the networking event, the webinar, all that, okay. I can't hear you.
Annual dues is still in the budget.
Okay, and that's how much?
It doesn't get separated out by event or anything. It's
Right, the base is what,
it's
like
about
20?
$18,000 a year.
It's about 18. So as we try to find, I mean, it's a nice thing to have. I'm not a fan of the MMA because I think it's a really good organization for uncomplicated communities. If you're not, if you're in the middle of the bell curve, they seem to do great things, and their lobbying on behalf of municipalities seems to work really well there. But Framingham is so complicated in so many ways that often they're asking legislators and municipal leaders to advocate for policy that wouldn't benefit Framingham. Additionally, if we have the opportunity as members to go to their trade show and their networking events and all of that kind of fun stuff, there are additional costs to that. And I don't know what we spent last year. And I had hoped that since you guys made a big push for MMA, it was probably one of the bigger sticking points that we've had, that over the course of the years, we'd get a sense of, these are the webinars that we went to, these are the breakout sessions that we assigned staff to go to, this is the person that's coming back and doing to kind of teach that on like a train the trainer type thing, what was learned in the breakout session, here are the best practices from other communities that we've implemented. It's been silence, other than the fact that a lot of people like to go to the trade show and the networking event and the dinner with the governor and all of that kind of fun stuff. So I don't know that we're getting the bang for the buck that perhaps was anticipated. But if $32,000 mean keeping our libraries open on the weekends, and I agree with everything that's been said about that, the importance of that, if that gets us a significant I mean, there's very low hanging fruit as well. I assumed that it was already out of the budget because you're making some very difficult decisions. So hopefully that can be reconsidered. It's a 398, just shy of $400 million right now. 32 grand is what's keeping the community from having access to the libraries that they've invested significant sums in personnel and infrastructure in, and having access to them on the weekends. And I mean, there's got to be a smarter way. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Della Santa.
So is there a better time to talk about the MMA, or is now a good time?
Now's a good time. It was brought up, you can talk about it.
So as far as the MMA is concerned, I would concur, as you guys know, with Councilor Cannon about our membership in the MMA. I would be interested, I did go to the trade show last January, and I was the least impressed as I've been with a trade show since I've been going to MMA trade shows, which, as the library director pointed out, was many years ago when they were in a different situation. But I'd be interested in how many people we sent, because it didn't seem like that many of us were there this year. So I'm not sure because one thing I would say, 20 years ago, the place was swarming with people from Framingham, people I hadn't seen in Framingham, I get to see in Boston. I didn't see that this year. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I just don't recognize as many people as I used to. So I'd be interested in how many people registered and how much we total paid to go to the MMA trade show, and kind of throw that number on top of the dues and see what we get for it. Before I make my final thoughts about whether I would suggest we get out of it, but I'm leaning towards that. A question I have is about library staffing, also going back many years. What is the staffing now compared to like 20 years ago or something like that?
You know, I don't have side-by-side, maybe Nick remembers, because Nick's been here a while as well, but we currently have about 45 permanent staff, the rest up to 80 staff, which we have our substitutes. And I guess the guess that I would make from my own time, I've been with the library since 12/12/12, is I've seen when we built the new branch, part of that was under the understanding that new staff wouldn't be added. So some of the staff from the main library have moved over to the McAuliffe branch, just because it was impossible to operate without some more people over there. So I would say, I know that at some point, some 37.5-hour positions were broken down from one staff member to 2 20-hour. And other than that, I don't think too many changes have been made. I think it's been a long time since the new staff was added.
Right, but the question I would have, and I asked other departments about this, but is I think you guys have done a great job of automating the library. One of the things I really like is the fact I can check out my own books. Even up on the second floor, I can check out my own books. But I remember from my days as a library trustee, which was even more than 20 years ago, that there were, we had to have 2 people at the front circulation desk at all times because, that they had to check out every book. I don't know how many books self-check out, but I would have to guess it's more than 50% of your circulation. Just a guess from seeing what I see when I'm there. Doesn't that save us manpower? Isn't that the idea of having that level of automation? And have we been able to save human resources based on the fact that so many of the books are self-checkout now, comparatively speaking, to 20, 25 years ago?
I think that's a very valid question, a good question. And it does, with all due respect, it does harken back to a time when libraries were a little bit heavier focused on circulation alone. So we still do have 2 staff members on each service desk for safety reasons. And those staff members, what those self-checks have done, there are 3 self-checks at the branch, and I think the branch uses the self-checks by far more than the main library does, and I'm not sure why that is, maybe because of their proximity. But what that also does is it allows our librarians to do more of the things that the community enjoys. We have of course, I mentioned the concerts that we have, all the programs that we do, the lectures that we do. We didn't add staff, if you remember, when we got a bookmobile. We have 2 staff that are out on that.
Let me just say, I totally agree with that and understand that. Okay, I do. And I think you certainly do many, many more things than you did 20 years ago. I understand that. And I appreciate it. And I think it's smart. I mean, I think libraries overall, not just the Framingham Public Library, have done a very good job of reinventing themselves. Otherwise, you would have gone the way of, Barnes & Noble online, and everybody. Not Barnes & Noble's still around, but people forget that Amazon started out as a bookstore, right? And that's all they sold was books. And I think they quickly realized that wasn't going to cut it, so to speak. And look what can't you get from Amazon now, right? And to some extent, the library followed the same type of trajectory, I guess. That having said, the fact that we still have 2 people on each desk where we checking out books, it just seems to me if we're going to spend the money on automation such as this, and I like the automation a lot, I really do. It just seems like we should have been able to save some. We're always told, and not just the library, I'm not picking you, lots of other things too, about how if we get this automated system, we're going to save so much time, and we hear that all the time, I think. And we never seem to save, and as I say, you're just one small part of that, but frankly, the library is a very obvious part of that because because it's the most public thing you probably do, check out books, right? So, I mean,
Yes.
at least visibly
Sure.
public thing you do. So, I don't know, I just feel like since we've taken that off, we should find some way of being able to benefit from that.
I think you're onto something. The thing that we also need to figure out is how those books can get themselves back on the shelves, how they can make, those machines can't make the library cards, they can't do reader's advisory, they can't answer
No,
research
there's no
questions.
question about that, but the way I understood it, these people
Yeah.
were pretty much dedicated to checking out books, the people that were.
Not anymore. So you have things happening down there, like I mentioned, the library card. Since we've had our new Literacy Unlimited coordinators in the room right now behind me, and since she has come to Framingham, she has connected, I want to say, hundreds of our English language learners with library cards. That's happening all day long. If you come into the main library, you'll see somebody down there getting a library card all day. Then those people also, they ask questions. They ask questions about where to pick up the bus. They ask questions about how to find an obituary. All of these things give us the automation. It does free up a certain amount of time, not a whole lot, but it gives us the opportunity to do more with the time that we have. And I will say, I think that, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I do feel like it maybe was oversold a little bit because some people don't like to use it. Some people won't, and I know you're a big fan of it, and it helps people just get in and get out when they want to. But, I think it's been a tool to.
Percentage of the books are checked out automatically versus at the desk.
That's a great question. That's one that I'd have to come back to you. I did not get that metric for this evening, but I will. I will get that for you.
I
Counselor
appreciate
King.
you addressing the issue.
All good? Council Malik.
Thank you for being here. I have a question. I'm looking at the spreadsheet that we got entitled FY27 Library Reductions,
Yes.
which, hopefully you have also. So under the proposed reductions for salary, I see 26,000 in regular salary and wages, and I see an additional 27,000 in the part-time salary and wages.
Yes.
So how does that, it sounds like the weekends is, you use substitutes, so I assume they're
Correct.
part-time? Is
Yes,
that-
they're classified as part-time. So the 27,000 you see is the substitutes, and the 26,000 is an open position that's frozen.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Can we switch gears?
Yep.
So, can we switch to the mayor's proposal for reorganization?
Certainly.
Which I think makes sense, and I think it's creative. Can you talk to us a little bit, or I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you want to talk about it, just talk to us a little bit about how we see that operating. What does it mean in terms of physical space, operations, your focus of your time, and I think it's easier with veterans because there'll be a veterans agent. Callahan, I think, is a little bit less precise. Who is the point person who is going to screen calls and make decisions when there's a challenge or an issue, and how does that impact the rest of the things that are going on?
Absolutely. Want me to talk? Okay, so I will preface this by saying, when I first heard this idea, it was right before I went on the first vacation I've taken since 2011, and I had an extraordinarily long drive through the middle of the night, so I had plenty of time to reflect on how I felt about this. And the first thing I'm going to do, obviously, is say, when I'm given a directive, is say, absolutely, how can I do this to the best of my abilities? But then I start to think about it on the dark, lonely highways, and I thought, this is such a forward-thinking idea. And I will say, Framingham is not the first municipality to think of pairing together senior centers and libraries, or senior centers and veterans, or veterans and libraries. This happens across the country. And it's an incredible investment into the social infrastructure of this community. One of the things that, I'm going to pick on Martha, I guess, because she's here, that I've learned from our staff and from the work that we do at the library with the community is that community is so important. A sense of community, a sense of belonging somewhere, the ability to be connected with resources that you previously didn't know exist. And so our mission at the library to do these things is completely parallel with the mission of the Senior Center and with the veterans, of course. There's so much opportunity for people who didn't know about resources that existed previously to find them. I think that connecting us together, de-siloing these departments, gives us such a stronger opportunity to serve this community. You think about the image, and I know this is a cliche, but you think about the image of a candle. When you light another candle with a candle, you're not diminishing the flame of the first one, you're just making it stronger and brighter, and that's what I see for this. Now, down to the nitty-gritty operations, that's something that's going to require a lot of conversation from all the stakeholders involved. But you look, library has a board of trustees with so much institutional knowledge and experience and intelligence. The Callahan Center has the Council on Aging and the Friends Board, some of whom are behind me, and the Veterans has the Veterans Council. We have a city council here, we have city leadership. We can come together and sit down and really work out the granular aspects of this restructuring together and figure out the best way for this to work. It's not. I don't think it's something that's going. If you're looking at now the library director has 3 jobs, sure, that's untenable. But if you look at a way to restructure and bring these organizations together to best serve the community, I think, like Steve said, we are onto something that could put us on the map, that could make us an example for other communities through the Commonwealth and maybe even further. I think it's a wonderful forward-thinking idea, and I'm excited to be part of it.
So I would just say, I agree with you. And I've looked at other communities, and I think the idea of joining those 3 entities together makes sense. The question that I would like an answer to before we go forward with this, and we're going to need it soon, is how does it actually work?
Right. I think that, yeah.
Because are you going to be attending the veterans meetings and the Council on Aging meetings? Who's the point person? There has to be, it's important that we work those things out and that we agree on concept. But the actual structure of who's accountable and how decisions are made and work is something that's not a little detail.
Not at all. I 100% agree with you.
But we have to vote soon on whether to approve that, and so we need an actual plan. Like in the next 30 days.
Absolutely, and I will absolutely. I mean, from my initial thoughts, if you mentioned meetings, the Veterans Council meets on Wednesday nights. You know, I'm happy to go to that. I love the veterans. I am a veteran. The Library Board of Trustees meets one Monday a month, you know, and I'd say the Callahan is even easier because it's at 1:30. You cannot beat that time. So I think, you know, anyway. So I think as far as what you're looking for in me is not a program coordinator. It's not, you know, it's not to drive the truck. It's not to do necessarily that. It's a higher level overarching director of a new division, really. And the staff at the Callahan, Noelia and Trish, and, you know, I don't know everybody yet, but they're fantastic. They're smart. They've created these programs. They have an operation. Look at what it's done in the last few years. The Callahan has grown exponentially. It's a wonderful resource for our community. So I think that what we need to do is get people in the room ASAP and hash this out and look at what it's going to look like. I 100% agree. As the person who's, you know, responsible for that, I 100% agree with you, and that is one of the things I intend to figure out quickly.
We look forward to seeing it.
Thank you. And your enthusiasm, no matter the challenge that is discussed, whenever you're brought into the conversation, is really infectious, and I think that's really important for a municipal leader, so it doesn't go overlooked. I think your staff and what I've seen, your volunteers, your board members, you know, they're forgive the analogy, but they're eager to follow you into battle. And that's an analogy that I use with everybody, not just with the Marine. I have a number of concerns. That plan about how this transition works, I hope will give us some comfort. I'm very, very worried about what that transition looks like, having nothing to do with the library piece. I think strategically it makes absolute sense for there to be that combination. I think it's really smart. I think it's overdue. I applaud the mayor for thinking that way. It's not the first, but there are not many communities that have done this formally. And I think our Council on Aging and our community of older adults have benefited from the cross-pollination between the Callahan Center and our portfolio of senior services and the library already. So I think that's a great opportunity to grow. When I look at Callahan right now, I'm puzzled by some of the choices that you've made, and I know the plan is being worked out, but, you know, I think they just hit yet another record in terms of attendance. I see yet another record in terms of the transportation, subscriptions for, you know, all of the other, you know, events and whatnot that they do. I mean, things are going very, very well there. So I worry about that. Whereas I see other areas in the municipal enterprise where things are not going so operationally smooth. And I'm wondering if this plan will save this amount of money but cause a considerable amount of difficulty in something that is otherwise working very well. So I know you're cognizant of all of these details, Mr. Mayor, but I'm hopeful that that detailed plan will allay a number of those fears, because it's the fastest growing segment of our community, as I know you know, and they are an area of our municipal budget that has never been overfunded. And I could probably make some arguments elsewhere, although it never feels like that in any department. But, you know, it's the Callahan Center Senior Services, they have to make do with what they are given, and I think they've done that extraordinarily well. So I have some concerns, and I'm glad we'll have the opportunity to talk more about that. Other than that, there's more to come. I apologize that I have to leave momentarily for something that was pre-scheduled, and I kind of have a hard out, so my exit is unfortunate, because I really want to be here for this discussion, and I'm glad that everybody is here. And these are tough times and tough decisions, but I'm glad the people in the room are the ones making them. So thanks for the work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Cannon. Councilor King.
It's just a little bit of follow-up on that. I appreciate the comments of both Mr. Stephanie and Mr. Cannon and their thoughts and concerns about it. You know, I also, like I said last night, I applaud the mayor for his ingenuity in this and figuring it out and being willing to do it. Through my own professional experience, I think these things work very well whenever you have a capable administrator able to do it. I've seen it happen a lot, and I really don't have too many concerns. I mean, I agree it's always important to plan, and it's always important to have a vision of what you're doing. But I think it's a very well thought out thing, and like Dawn said, I think she's not looking to be the truck driver. She's looking to be the overseer. And sometimes I think we spend too much time and money getting too many overseers. And I think when we bring it back like this, to find somebody who we believe is good at these types of things programmatically, and, you know, we talked about a few minutes ago about the expanding scope of the library, being able to do things like that. I think it's the direction to go, and I think we should continue to look for these type of efficiencies, because these are really the efficiencies that we've been encouraging you to look for. And if you find them, act on them like you have. And I feel that you have to find the people who are capable of doing it. And once you find those people, I'm very confident that it'll be able to be done, it'll become more efficient, and it'll be successful. So I certainly am open to the ideas and thoughts people have, and wanting to talk about the you know, the details of it. But overall, the concept of it, you know, I'm very supportive of. I think it works, and I think it's proven it works.
Just briefly, well said. I'm impressed that we didn't hire a consultant. I honestly, you know, would have been very easily, you know, we're going to hire a vendor to do a study, and we're going to look at
consultants.
100%. I am hopeful that the wild success, and I think it does come down to finding the right people. Busy people who have a track record of getting things done well and being strong leaders are great at being a next generation leader who can continue to get things done and overcome obstacles. I'm hopeful that when we sit here a year ago, we look back fondly on this time of challenge and crisis, and you're more confident and comfortable in making further choices that are consistent with the bold decisions that you've kind of been forced to make because of these, you know, the budgetary times that we're in. So it's an exciting time. It's never an easy time, never a fun time, but even when times are good. But I echo a lot of what Councilor King has said, and I apologize that I have to sneak out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for those comments. And I'm not going to say all the same things either, but I was thrilled when they hired you in your new position. And I think it was well said what was said. And you know what? Tough times, tough decisions. We've been asking for consolidation and things for a lot of years, okay? Because nobody ever thought this day was going to be this bad, but it's this bad, okay? And it's only going to get worse. And you've heard it from the predictions, and there's a new team in place, thank God, all right? I think the new CFO brings a lot to the table. You know, I got a call today from somebody that spends summers on Nantucket, they're singing your praises, and you're the real deal. And it just, you know, we've gone along and chugged along, but it's time, you know, people get mad when I say it, it's a $400 million budget. 398, yeah, okay.
398.
398. And let's count all the other little stuff. Like, we spent $2,600, the council did last year for that MMA, just so you know, Councilor Canning. It's $2,600, I was told, or it's $2,601 and $60 in parking just for our division. So it'll be interesting to get all the numbers in.
Wow.
But I think we're on the right path, all right? And, you know, last night we had hard conversations, and you've embraced it enthusiastically. You know, Steve, people that, you know, that spend a lot of time at the Callahan Center. You know, I see veterans in the audience, and people that we know and respect. And I think we're going to be in good shape. And I think, you know, forecasting, you know, the mayor, we've been asking for them some consolidation. He's had to make some tough decisions and think a little bit out of the box. You know, I got a call today, somebody's furious about the fireworks. Well, the same person that was telling me they're furious about the fireworks was saying we need to give the schools more money. So I said, you know, you're killing me on the conversation because, you know, if he had the fireworks, they'd criticize him. So all of us are in a no-win situation, especially him and the 7 or the 11 of us that sit up here. But I think we'll get through this, and, you know, things will get better. And you're enthusiastically looking at getting better. You know, this is a temporary fix, but you're willing to be a team player. You know, even Councilor Cannon has, you know, his office hours up at the McAuliffe, okay?
Yes.
And then your veterans coffee at the McAuliffe that I've attended a few times. And it's nice to bring people into those places, and that's what you do, and you've done it well. So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Anybody else up here on the libraries? All good. Thank you very much, and thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. Yeah, oh, Heather, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Happy birthday, Heather.
Thank you.
You gotta love that Facebook, keeps us all on top of things. My wife says I'm awful, I go at her, you got it all, you're good. See you, Mike. Have a good evening, Councilor Cannons. I apologize, you're up.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Heather Klisch. I live at 21 Laclede Avenue, and I am the chair of the Framingham Board of Library Trustees. My comments this afternoon are about what you were just speaking about, the newly proposed Library and Cultural Affairs restructuring related to the budget that the mayor mentioned last night at last night's Finance Subcommittee meeting. First, I want to be clear that the Board of Library Trustees has very limited information about this proposal and has not yet met about the proposal. So I'm not speaking tonight on behalf of the board, nor I am representing an official board position. So, however, speaking for myself as a trustee and board chair, I do have serious concerns about both the process and the potential impact of this proposal. So I'm deeply troubled that the trustees learned about this potential restructuring, a potential restructuring of this magnitude indirectly through a public meeting discussion rather than through direct communication in advance, particularly given the significant implications for library governance and leadership. And both the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 78, and our city charter assign the trustees specific responsibilities related to the management and oversight of the library and the library division head, including governance, budget recommendations, and performance review responsibilities. I hope that as this conversation continues, that there will be meaningful discussion with the trustees and careful consideration of the operational governance and long-term impacts that a restructuring of this scale could have on the library staff, and the community it serves. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All good? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Mayor? We had the DPW.
We're going to go to item 1.
We talked about the libraries. Anything else you want to add to this conversation? Councilor King?
Are we still meeting here? I have a couple questions on the documents on the debt service and health. Is that tonight or is that?
That is tonight. That was on the
Yeah, it's-
agenda. We can talk about that a little bit. And then just one other thing, Ms. Kelly, I know we talked about it last night about the affordable housing rentals. Based on that communication I found that was sent to me from the Buckley back in September of last year, and based on the city solicitor's information, can we put that on the agenda for tomorrow, or is it too late?
Too late. I mean,
Can talk about it under member prerogatives. Okay. Well, that's what we'll do then.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I know the Finance Committee hasn't recommended on that, but if it's not too late, we should put it on the council agenda for Tuesday, because it was submitted to us on May 3rd.
30 days.
30 days, it automatically is approved, which would be, if we don't vote on it on So we haven't taken a position on it, but
Is that okay with you, Council King?
It's fine, but, you know, I didn't realize that, but if we're getting into technicalities, Tuesday is actually the 31st day.
oh, yeah. So we've missed our opportunity to have an input into that, which I think,
I don't think we have much input into it, to be honest with you. If you
I
read
agree.
that the city solicitor's decision, and you read what came from Mr. McDowell's attorney a year or so ago, it wasn't a year or so ago, but the last time it got brought up, you know, they're set by the state. We're supposed to say if they're in compliance or not. So could we put it on just for discussion,
Yeah,
Council
yeah,
King, so
yeah.
people know what we're dealing with and what we're talking about?
Absolutely, yeah,
On Tuesday for
As long as he's in charge of that, yeah.
sure. We still can do it, right, yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
day's today?
Wednesday.
Yeah, we still can do it,
Yeah,
yeah,
Wednesday.
okay, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that, folks.
So-
Council King, you're up about those other items.
Yeah, so on the debt service, can you just explain what you're representing there on the debt service analysis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So let me just pull that up, Councilor King. But what we did was we projected out the first 5 years, or the next 5 years, fiscal 27 through 21, and summarized those because those are the most, what I would call the current debt. And then we subsequently took fiscal 32 through 46 and aggregated that when all the debt is amortized on the.
All right, so that answers a little bit of my question.
Yeah,
So-
and then the total is just the total of the top column of that debt, which is the 5 years projected out, and then the fiscal 32, I think, through 46.
So think for FY '27, that is the current debt. That has nothing to do with our proposed capital budget this year.
That is correct. What is in that schedule is everything that we are obligated and has been permanently bonded. The only difference that you'll see tomorrow is there's about $650,000 that we put in for short-term interest and borrowing bond anticipation note costs. But that is the permanent debt, including the override, programmed out. So you can see at least what's in front of us for the next 5 years, which by my calculation, we amortize approximately 39% of the outstanding principal over the next 5 years, and then shows the remaining 15, and then the aggregate total of approximately $185 million of outstanding principal and interest.
Right, but we also, of course, will be doing more over the, so even though you're estimating we get rid of about just 50, oh, it's right there, $56 million of principal, how much is that of the total principal?
That is about 39% of the total of about $144 million in principal, so.
So, all right.
You're right. That shows where we are today in the next 5 years as a lookout and see where the progression is in terms of reduction in debt service. It does not take into account yet any of the previously approved CIP that was borrowing authorizations because some of those haven't started.
That's a good point. Right,
and
so it's
that
not
is-
only this year's, it's previous years too.
Correct.
How much has not been authorized yet, do you know? Has not been bonded yet?
I would have to go back and look at what authorized unissued is. I don't know that number off the top of my head. I apologize.
That's
I
all right.
didn't
No, I
expect
wouldn't-
that question.
Yeah, no, I get it. Wouldn't necessarily expect you to. How much is the total capital budget for tomorrow night, or Tuesday night?
71 million.
And how much of that is general fund?
36 million.
So half of it's enterprise fund? It sounds, because we have those huge projects. You know, one thing I think we should consider going forward, because there's a lot of demand for capital projects, and I know there's a demand for things like swimming pools, which I totally agree with. I know the mayor agrees with that. I know the mayor's been working on that. And there's a lot of demand, which I also agree with and support, on streets. I appreciate and applaud the fact that you added to that number this year and I think it's one of those things that makes a huge, impact on the community, and I think it's great. But this shows us how expensive it gets, too. So we've been talking about this whole issue about the budget, and this is one of the things that, I don't want to say brings down the budget, but the budget has to pay, so therefore we can't cut this because we have to pay this, obviously. One thing I think we should consider as time goes on is maybe utilizing, given our excess capacity situation, maybe utilizing the debt exclusion process more for not just big projects such as schools, but if we have other projects that may not fit in specifically in an easy way each year that there's some community support for, I think we should consider putting them out to votes in the future so that we get this under control, and give people the opportunity to do, for a relatively reasonable price, major projects that people might like to see in the city, but not have to fit it into our current tight budget parameters. I think it serves a double purpose. It gives people input as to what we can do and what they're interested in doing, and also gives us a little bit more room within the budget.
It makes a lot of sense, because with the budget, you can't do those projects. There's no way. In the pool, everywhere we go, we were at Keefe, the mayor and I, for the Rotary. I'm a member of the Rotarians. And they're all talking about the pool. But as we know, that's a story for another day. You know, Keefe Tech is,
That's just one example. There's lots of
that's
other
all,
things.
right, that's only one example, the school, the pool.
But otherwise, I mean, this debt service is never going to be easy to deal with.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to your comments, Councillor King, one of the things that we've talked internally about is looking at I've discussed internally with the mayor and the COO, looking at the last 4 years of approved projects that have borrowings attached to them to see where they're at, and kind of trying to determine what the runway looks like for them to actually start in the near future, and considering what alterations, if any, can be made to that, because it was one of the first things that I think I mentioned to the mayor when I kind of glanced over capital, is that a lot of it is financed through borrowings, and all of the borrowings in the city are primarily done inside the levy limit. And as we work to remove free cash from the budget, ever increasing debt service is going to reduce the amount of available capacity that we're using for a very long period of time. So I have made the recommendation that we start looking at these projects that have been approved and assessing the likelihood and ranking the importance, so that we can identify the ones that should be going on that scale, and kind of trying to get a better idea of what that looks like, because it is one of the 4 pillars that I keep talking about, and especially in cities that don't really use debt exclusions like towns do. Towns do debt exclusions almost all the time, because that's the way that they finance large-scale capital projects, is through that debt exclusion, because they don't have the luxury of as much excess capacity as the city does. But it's something that is, I think, intended but not explicit in the original memo for the budget, that this is something we need to look at as well as we work on predictability and sustainability. So it is the next phase of everything that we're trying to implement and help accomplish.
So I heard some of your comments. I don't remember reading that specifically, but if I did, I didn't mean to steal your idea. But if I didn't, I appreciate you turning my attention in that direction. But my attention turned there for 2 reasons. 1, because of your statement about the 4 pillars, and 2, because of our issues with not having the override ability, as far as the general fund is concerned. But we would have it as far as excluding debt.
Councilor Stefanini?
Thank you. I would agree with both of you. I would just add to your list as you're going through, it'd be good for us to do some deauthorization as well. I know the bond rating agencies like that, but I'm not really a big fan of coming in and saying, well, we're going to take a little piece of the solar panel project that was done and a little piece of this roof project. Let's just wipe them out and then come back and do it all over again.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I certainly agree. It was something that we did in both of my previous municipalities, is that we review the outstanding debt, what was authorized, what's been expended, and we rescind any unneeded borrowings to bring down our outstanding, our authorized but unissued debt, which you are absolutely correct, Councilor Stefanini. The bond rating agencies do look at that, because they look at your capacity to continue to add debt and to continue to service that. So anytime that we can do that, and I've not always been a big fan of reauthorizing borrowing authorizations for something that may be similar but wasn't anticipated the way it is, except in extreme limited cases. So this is all part of, I guess how I would phrase it is, as soon as we can get through the budget season and get that approved, it's all the next step of all of everything I've been talking about sustainability and predictability. So it's all out there in what I am hoping to accomplish with the administration and the council.
Good. I'm excited. I agree with your agenda. Can we switch topics?
Wait, can I have a
I'm sorry.
follow-up about that?
You got to follow up, and then I'm going to call on Zoom land, and then we can go back to Council Stefanini. Yep.
Thank you. Just so as a follow-up, I understand there's like, we get to the budget and then we do everything, but moving forward, when it's not all going to happen in June and July, what would be the ideal time of year on an annual cycle that we would be looking at that debt and rescinding?
Ideally, given the fact that we go to market twice a year, okay, we go typically in June to issue bond anticipation notes to essentially pay ourselves back for projects because we have the authority to pay and basically replenish our cash for any projects that have bonding authority with them. And then we typically, as I understand it here in the city, go in December for permanent borrowings. So ideally, the two times would be in the run-up and the runway to both of those events. So ideally, what would have happened, had it been here in January, would have been, we would have started looking at our authorized and unissued and what is unexpended on certain projects and worked with the departments to see if that project was completed and we could rescind the debt and come before you prior to the issuance of the debt. So ideally, we would start in January and probably late July or August for the second round. So it's also a multi-review process. It's not just those 2 months. As we charge against capital project accounts and we reconcile those accounts and we see what the activity is, that's when we should be doing this. So it's a primary focus in those 2 months, but it's a continuous focus, and it should be as part of our routine process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor King, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Bloomfield in the Zoom land. Councilor King.
So I also think that if we have projects, this is a little frustrating. We often hear people come in here, oh, we have to have our projects approved by, June because we have to do it this summer. So if we have projects 3 or 4 years later that haven't been done, I think we should seriously consider whether or not we should just deauthorize them and reconsider them in the current light, because they were voted for a reason in the context of at the time, but, I don't know what they are at all, so maybe
Guaranteed the numbers have changed. There's no doubt about that in 3 years.
all those things, so.
Mr. Bloomfield, you have the floor for 3 minutes, sir. Oh, actually, I'm corrected, 2 minutes. I apologize. 2 minutes, Jerry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Good comments, good meeting. A couple of things hanging out there for me that I just want to get taken care of. I brought it up before, but I'm going to bring it up again. But before that, I want to know, have we identified all funds, all reserve funds across the gamut of all the organizations in the city? And do we have any speculation as to how much new money is going to be going into the free cash once this fiscal year 26 is closed out? Also, I'm being stubborn about this because I want to know what's in the sustainability fund. And I need to know that, and I think everybody should know that. And I also want to know if we have anything that's recognized as the rainy day fund. So just a couple loose ends. I want the information. I've been asking for the information, and I think it's fair that we have that information to add to our entire story about our budget situation.
Okay. We'll see if we can get you some answers. Thank you. I know you've told us before, too, you're taking all the money out of free cash. That doesn't look well, too, for us, because it needs to be replenished. And how often can you keep replenishing 10 million at a shot? But can we address a couple of Mr. Bloomfield's questions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We do have a stabilization fund, okay, which is, Moody's recognizes that we have it. And I don't have down to the penny, but it has approximately $22 million in it, okay? General fund stabilization. Using that versus free cash, it's pretty much similar, because if you use the stabilization fund, we're going to have to replenish it. Most communities have a financial policy that if you tap into it, you can't come back to it until it's been replenished, and there's a requirement of a certain percentage. In a prior community that I was in, we had a requirement that 25% over a 4-year cycle was replenished if we drew against it, and we couldn't come back to it until it had been replenished. So that does exist. It's something we need to look at. Free cash, I don't have an exact projection, but I think that the city accountant and I are both confident that based on some of the expenditures that we are that we have used it for, are going to use it for, are going to certainly reduce the amount of reserves, and free cash is one of them. The exact number we're still working on because we're looking at local estimated receipts and all outstanding property tax collections, but we are I do not foresee a scenario where we have almost $26 million of free cash next year. It's going to be, I won't say substantially reduced, but it's going to be reduced probably by at least 3 million at first glance, or more, depending on the way the next 30 days go and depending on what we have to do. We are actively looking, as I've said before, for turnbacks to close the ARPA gap, but I have made a commitment to both the mayor and to the city, to the finance subcommittee, that we will not ask or seek levy limit authority after July 1st to close that gap with the COVID money. So we may have to propose using some amount of free cash to close that as well. We're going to be about a $1.4 million short in health insurance, which I think has been, the number's been kind of bantered or projected around about 2.1, but it's trending in the right direction still. So I think, and please, this is still 30 days before we close the books, and there's still a lot of receipts that are coming in. I think probably comfortably it's going to be somewhere between 22 and 23 million if everything holds the way we look right now on free cash.
Okay, thank you very much. You want to change topics, Councilor Stephanie?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the other.
Your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just make it easy.
I'd like to talk about a couple of other things. First, health insurance. So you've talked about, and I think it makes sense for us to explore looking at a ERISA waived plan. And I know the city has switched back and forth over the decades on this, and you get a better rate, you get a better proposal for a few years, and then you switch it back and you go forward. How are we going to go about thinking about that? What are you thinking, and what are we putting in place so that 6 months from now, 3 months from now, we can have a real conversation about this for the next fiscal year?
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great question. Given the complexities of withdrawing from the GIC, honestly, this might be a longer runway review, because in order to, I believe, and I have to go back and check, but I recall through memory, in order to withdraw for July 1st, we would have to notify them by December 31st of 2026, effective for July 1st of 2027. And health insurance is a really difficult thing in some respects to get your arms around. So this might be a longer term analysis. It's going to take, we've added a little bit, as you could see, into professional technical consultants, because we have a really great, we do a lot of work with Cook and Company, and they're very good at what they do in terms of this, and they have a much broader reach because they're part of what's known as Hill Company now. So they have a lot more depth that they can help with, but it's going to be a lot of analysis to understand what those plans would look like if we were to go to self-insured. I don't think putting it out and extricating ourselves from GIC just to go to, say, Maya or somewhere else is necessarily the right path, because it's a 1 or 2 year fix, and then we're right back into the same situation that we're in, with looking again to try to chase, all we're doing is chasing a rate, right? That's what we're doing if we do that. I think, in my opinion, based on the number of covered lives, the thing to look at is to be self-insured. But that's not a 6-month process. That is going to take a lot of work. It likely will include conversations with what's known as the Public Employee Committee to make those changes. And very candidly, I do not believe it can be done for July 1st of 2027 unless it was the only thing that I was focusing on with everybody else that needed to help do it. So I think it is realistically, it's not to say the work won't start now, but it's realistically likely a July 1st, 2028, if we're going to make that decision. And it's going to involve a lot of stakeholders in discussions about pros and cons to do it. And so to be completely candid, I don't think it can be done for fiscal 28. I think it would have to be fiscal 29.
Okay, I think that's good for us to know. I also think, I know Cook has the ability to do a utilization analysis, and they can run it through their formulas to see, the best way to look at it is, what did we pay this year, and what would be our experience if we were doing the same bill payments ourselves, including administration, et cetera.
Correct.
I know you know that, I'm just.
Yeah, no, and it's a good point. And I think with self-insurance, I mean, you would ideally, and just use one company because I'm familiar with the way that because we were self-insured in my prior community. And Blue Cross was basically the administrator and wrote the checks, and the plan design was what we had developed, and they got approved by the necessary approving agencies for it. And so it can work if it's properly designed with stop loss to cover your catastrophic events. But it takes a lot of analysis, and it will require a lot of work with Cook and Company and getting the data, utilization data from the GIC itself.
Yeah, we did that at one point in time in Framingham. It would be helpful for us to have a check-in on that in 3-6 months so that we're moving forward, because this issue isn't going away over the next few years.
Correct.
Can I switch topics again? Yeah. Can we talk for a second about the letter from PARAC and our retirement system? And I am not in favor of this, but I would like you to walk through the discussion. There are some people in our community that think that we have this magic money, and this memo is very interesting because it talks about 4 years left. So what happens in 4 years when our pension liability is paid off?
Through you, Mr. Chair. If you're asking me what happens, in fiscal 2031, we would recoup about roughly $22 million of levy capacity. Now, I would say this, if you're asking my opinion or recommendation, most communities have made a commitment that when their unfunded pension liability is paid off, that some portion of that money be directed into an OPEB trust fund, okay? Because, and one of the things in the health insurance line is also, I would like to have a different firm do our OPEB evaluation, because the firm that the city has been using is essentially some attorneys out of New York that have actuaries, and the format, I don't believe, really is transparent enough and breaks down the OPEB liability enough for us to really understand it. So that's one thing I would think we should look at, but nonetheless, it doesn't change the fact that we have a growing OPEB liability. And one of the ways to get at that is when your pension obligation and the unfunded portion of that pension obligation is fully extinguished, is to have a policy to direct some portion of that recoupment of that available spending authority with that money into an OPEB trust fund to try to jumpstart and supercharge collections into that, so that we're taking that because that is one of the liabilities that Moody's looks at, is what are you doing with OPEB and how are you funding it and what is your policy towards taking care of that. So that would be the initial recommendation to me, from me to through the mayor for a policy implementation through the council, and whatever that process looks like, is come to a consensus on what some number might look like. The follow on to that is, I know that there's at least one member of the community, and a few others have mentioned it in various comments that they've made about extending the runway for the payoff. One of the communities that's been mentioned, as I think I've mentioned before, is a single member contributory retirement system made up of all of the municipal employees and the school employees not eligible for Mass Teachers Retirement System. And in order to extend their payoff, the original rate of growth there was about 6.9%, I believe it was, that was assumed in the calculations for the payoff schedule. They agreed to take it down to 3.6%, which was what this particular municipality was projecting for their revenue growth, and extend the schedule out. They had anticipated doing pension obligation bonds, but I can tell you from experience, pension obligation bonds are not statutorily allowed unless you have a home rule petition or special legislation to do it. And having attempted it, the legislature, given some of the past bad experiences for some systems that attempted it prior, doesn't have a lot of appetite to grant municipalities the ability to issue pension obligation bonds, or the retirement system to issue them. It's It's a difficult, arduous process, even if they had the appetite to do it. But in order to be able to extend that schedule, the particular community had also needed to agree to increase the COLA base by $3,000 annually for every retiree, which also serves to increase the cost in perpetuity over the lifetime of the system. So I will say that I've talked to the director of the retirement system, and they've talked to PERAC. PERAC is running some schedules so that we can at least understand what it would look like. I think we're so close that it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know that $5 million is actually what we would save, because we're a 22D community, because we have a funding schedule that ends in 2030. And 22D communities, if you try to extend your schedule, do have to pay a minimum of approximately 95% of the prior year assessment. So I don't know we're going to save this $5 million. I haven't seen an analysis that produces that yet. So we have asked PERAC to kind of look at it and see if it's even possible to do. Again, I'm not saying that I would support or recommend it, but as a matter of due diligence to make sure that everybody understands why we're not making that decision, we have undertaken that. We're a multi-member contributory system as well. So any pushing out of that schedule would impact the other two members of the system as well. And there have been no discussions that I know of or aware of how any extensions would impact them, either positive or negative. And I don't think it's as easy as just doing it because we're not a single member. So I know that was long-winded, and I'm sorry for that, but does it answer your question?
More or less. I was asking, first of all, I don't support that and don't think it's smart for us to do. We have 4 years left. I think of it in simple terms for people. You have a 30-year mortgage, you have 4 years left. Does it really make sense to go back and do a 20 or 30-year mortgage and start paying all of the interest and everything else that goes forward? There's just two things I would just highlight. One is, no matter how much you put into a trust, you're still looking at the community having available a significant amount of money that isn't available today.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Unless the recommendation from the CFO was to put all of it into the trust as a way to supercharge and get OPEB funded on a better schedule, that's correct. There's going to be some sizable amount of levy capacity that is currently being used to fund the retirement system that will not be needed in the future.
You'll be a hero. I mean, you're looking at taking $22 million off of our books and supercharging our trust funds and generating more money for various programs. I think it's important for us to think about that so that everybody who stopped paying a mortgage thinks the day you stop sending a mortgage check, that money is in your pocket. And I think this just needed a little visibility because it's been raised as a simple, easy way for us to solve all of our fiscal problems, and it is none of those things.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Councilor King, go ahead.
You go, then Councilor King.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to note that even if we wanted to extend it, I believe the maximum you could go would be to either 2038 or 2040. So it's not another 15 or 20 year extension. It's a rather limited runway to do it.
Councilor King.
I would just say the same thing I said the other night and agree with Councilor Stefanini. We'd be crazy to do it at this point where we're so close, even for a short run. And the things that this is the unfortunate part about some of this, and, an issue that's come up a little bit is how do we communicate when we talk about to the public? And, with all the newspaper and stuff like that, that is a little bit more challenging than it used to be, because certain ideas get out there that are just inaccurate. And the statement, I think it was made last night, maybe, I heard it somewhere, about saving $5 million. That's just an ignorant statement because the person doesn't know how much it would save. There's been no basis of that whatsoever. Right, it just throws the number out, and somehow we're not, dealing with, just because that happens to be a number we're cutting in the latest iteration of the budget, it makes it sound like that saves, I'm not in favor of borrowing to fund our current expenses, and I would look forward to the day, hopefully, that, there's $22 million available, and I also look forward to the fight as to why we shouldn't spend it on OPEB.
Counselor Malik, then Counselor Stefanini.
Just quickly, when you talk about us being a multi-member body, for those who maybe haven't pulled up the background materials, those other members are the Framingham Housing Authority and the Metro West Regional Transit. Sorry, thank you, correct.
Counselor Stefanini.
Thank you. Switching gears one last time. Two things that I would ask if you could, in your spare 30 seconds, do for us. A few years ago, we took and we cleaned up all of our separate accounts. All those little accounts that are in the books. If you could just give us an accounting of their activities for the last year and their balances. The last time we did this exercise a few years ago, we found money for Bates Park that had been sitting in an account for 20 years with no interest to buy equipment. And hopefully we've cleaned all that up and we've dealt with that. But whatever all of the various independent accounts, and I would include in that Edgell Grove.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, so you're really referring to like the special revenue accounts that may have been donated for a particular purpose, et cetera, that may have been forgotten about and has money that could be used to offset expense? Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, we took and we passed, 3 years ago, we passed an ordinance listing all of the various, I don't know what you call those accounts.
I don't really remember, but.
Specialty accounts, or they're all unique. There's a mayor's account, there's an Edgell Grove account, there's a,
Mitigation account for the planning board.
yeah, there were like 20 of them. It wasn't like a ton, but we were supposed to get a report annually as part of the budget, as part of that process. And the second thing is just an Excel spreadsheet of the checkbook, what we spend for probably the last fiscal year. So, for example, a question that Mr. Cannon asked about the MMA, there's a simple way to figure that out. We don't have to ask you. Just go into the checkbook and say, search MMA, and you can figure out what we've paid, not only in dues, but what did we pay for conferences or whatever. It's kind of a crude tool, but it's a simple, easy tool to get a gut check on terms of what is the magnitude of what we do. For example, one thing that always hits me on that, and I'm not going to ask you to do anything on this at this moment, but if you look through cell phones, the amount of money we spend as a community between the schools and the town, police, everything it's just staggering. I mean, I didn't tell you, everybody you meet with has 2 cell phones. And I often wonder, the way my office dealt with it is they give everybody a stipend for a cell phone rather than paying for a second cell phone. And I realize there are open meeting law issues around all that, which probably relate to only a handful of people, like the mayor, visible people. But for police officers and others, you may end up with the same thing, because we pay for cell phones for everybody. So, but that's another day.
Okay. Anything else? Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion by Counsel Stefanini.
Can I ask a question? Did we schedule a meeting next Monday?
Only if we needed it, so it won't be scheduled probably unless after tomorrow night we decide we need it.
Okay, so can we talk about our schedule for meetings moving forward? Because I don't know that we have a
Under member,
particularly robust.
she might not have it listed, but under member prerogatives, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second to the adjourn? Counsel King?
Second, okay.
Okay. All those in favor, because there's only 4 of us left in the room, say aye. Aye, 4-0. Thank you.